Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a fantastic day so far. So today, I want to talk about part two of the context element that I spoke about before in relation to the portfolio career steps or guide, the 9 steps. And so previously I spoke about the personal elements, getting to know yourself a bit better. How do you identify self? What does that look like? Because if we know ourselves better, then we have a deeper sense of meaning. And so now that we've clarified that bit, we now want to think about what the market is saying. What do I mean by the market? The market is basically a collection of different activities and behaviors and outcomes that affects how we do things. So this will affect the economic cycle, this will affect how we spend money, this will affect how or why things are on offer or for sale, etc., etc. And it really comes down to this whole idea of demand and supply. I never studied economics and I've read up about it and I've watched some videos on it. But very simply, there is always going to be a certain amount of demand for a certain set of goods and services, and there will only be a finite amount of supply, okay? And so understanding the driving factors and the things that affect demand and supply will help you understand how you can best position yourself in a pool. And so when we're thinking about the market, we need to think to ourselves, how are we enabling ourselves to have the best opportunity to create the right amount of supply for the demand that exists? That's what we're thinking about. And so if you're thinking about this in relation to contracts, okay, so that's basically anybody who is able to make money in exchange for an amount of work or services, etc., etc., you'll realize that there is a certain amount of demand for supply. And so understanding self and understanding what you want to build and understanding your skills and competencies becomes extremely important when knowing how you can position yourself effectively. Now, when thinking about market conditions, there are different sources. Now, first obvious source is the news, okay? And it's very important to make sure that you get a good set or portfolio of different news stations or news platforms that you're getting your information from. This could be from the BBC. Some people don't trust it. Some people really do trust it. This could be from Channel 4. This could also be more YouTube-based news. This could be news that is more popularized to the left or the right or the right or the left, etc., etc., even though I did it the wrong way around. But you want to get these various different sources to get different ideologies, different ideas. But here's the thing. What you should start doing is start collecting the names of individuals who are being interviewed and the people who are being, I guess, assessed for their ideas and opinions, and go deeper into their work. That's one way to do it, because you get different ideas from different people. So you go deep into their works. How do you do that? You write down their name, you check out if they got a YouTube channel, you check out if they got a book, you check out if they got a platform, and get an idea of what they're preaching. How does that align with the market, so to speak? So that's one way of doing it. Of course, there are other influencers and micro-influencers you can check out who do a great job as well. And so these individuals are typically on the YouTubes or on the LinkedIns or whatever it may be, and they are giving good knowledge. TikTok as well actually has resonated within this space. But you'll get a different style and set of people who are spouting out knowledge, okay? And this all comes down to market. So number one, you've got the type of people who are giving their opinion. And actually sometimes their opinion is warranted because it speaks to the sentiment of a whole populace, a whole group of people. Then you've got individuals who are very facts-based and go based on, what the government's done, etc., etc. And so these people are good to follow because they're following certain, I guess, references from documentation such as the OECD or the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, etc., etc. And so what this allows you to do is to follow their line of inquiry and actually go to the actual source to see where they're getting their information from. So you may be getting information from ONS employment data, as an example. You may be getting stuff from reports. So reports are another great way of getting information. These are reports from Deloitte, KPMG, PwC, McKinsey, JP Morgan. These are all big names that produce really, really good reports when it comes to employment, entrepreneurship, business, technology, AI, geopolitics, the market in general, all of this kind of stuff there. And so if you can't be bothered to read through all of this stuff, we've got AI now. So you're using things like Notebook LM, you use Relay as an example. I use both tools. These are really good ways to get information, or at least extract information, summarize it, and get AI to help you answer different questions in relation to it. You can also use Perplexity. If you don't want to go to these different sources, Perplexity is a great tool, a free tool that you can use, and also a paid one, where you can essentially get information based on a prompt, and it will do that research for you, give you references, footnotes, all of that kind of stuff there. And so this is one way of assessing what the market feels like in general. And you can go deep in an industry, you can go deep in a niche, etc., etc. But there is the understanding of the macroeconomics and the microeconomics. What do I mean by this? So obviously this is going to be slightly different for different people, but the macro is looking at the bigger picture. What are the big ticket things that are changing the landscape in terms of employment in general? So for many people, that's going to be something like a COVID, that's going to be something like a war, or tariffs, or something to do with supply chain, etc., etc. These things affect employment. These things affect the market, so to speak. And so what that means is that will affect demand and supply. That will affect the amount of supply that's available potentially. That may affect the amount of demand that is available, or any opportunities that arise, etc., etc. So think about all of this kind of stuff there. But when we're talking about the micro, what we're talking about is more niche and more specific things. So things that may be happening within your industry. Is there anything happening in healthcare that is affecting the way procurement law is being done? Is there anything that's happening in AI and tech that's affecting the capacity that exists within an organization? Is there anything happening within transport that is affecting food chains and all of that kind of stuff there? So you have to think macro and micro when it comes to this stuff. And of course, once you get the mood of the sentiment from a macro micro standpoint, you've got your sources, and of course these sources will grow. You just have to find a way to produce a report. Now, a very smart way of doing this is creating a prompt that enables you to draw this information for you on a regular basis, whether this is weekly, monthly, or quarterly, whatever it may be. But it draws this information for you. And of course, you have to test it and prompt it in such a way where you can get this information effectively. That is a huge hack, but you have to do the manual work first, because if you're going to rely on AI to do everything, it's not going to work, I promise you. You need to do the heavy lifting, because you'll be able to check out all the nuances, etc., etc. So that is one part of it. The second part of it is now looking at the job market. Okay, now whenever I'm starting to apply again, or whatever it may be, what I'm specifically doing is I'm going onto job boards like CV Library or JobServe or whatever it may be. Okay, I don't have a favorite per se, and I'm looking at the whole market. Now, of course, I'm not necessarily looking at jobs that don't necessarily relate to me. So I do have like keywords that make sense. Okay, so for example, for me, it may be transformation, change, program, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I have a whole list of keywords, and I'll type in those keywords into that job board and see how many jobs are available, and which of those available jobs actually are aligned to what I'm looking for. And I'd literally count how many there are and see how long they've been posted for, etc., etc. So what that does is I can see firsthand primary research what exists in the marketplace. And I'll do that for a number of different roles. And this takes time. This is not something you just do quick, whatever. You have to take your time with this, okay? And of course, you've got these AI tools like AI Apply and all this other stuff. Feel free to use those if you want. I'm always thinking about opportunities or situations where if AI wasn't a thing, which it is, and or these tools fail you for whatever reason, how do you do this without those tools? I think it's really important to understand how that stuff works. But of course, I understand people have been in the trenches for a long time. So if you're not wanting to do this stuff, fair enough. I might do a separate video on AI tools that you can utilize, etc., etc. But just know I don't necessarily use them as much myself. And so you do this research, you start to get an idea of the market, and then you know what keywords make sense for your industry, what other keywords don't make sense for your industry, and you tackle it. You check things like LinkedIn, you see what's on there, not just in terms of jobs, but in terms of people who have those jobs, okay? You start to learn what the market is saying, what the market was saying, etc., etc. So really and truly, you've got number one, news and data, okay? Those are two big things. News, data, and reports, that's one repository. The second repository is what the actual market is saying, okay? So this is job boards, etc., etc. Again, if you're not applying for jobs and you're going for a different type of contract, you may be checking things like tenders or procurement portals, okay? Most people know Contract Finder. There are many out there, not just for the public sector, but also for the private sector as well. And so you may check demand based on those places too. What we're trying to do is understand what is the appetite, what's the opportunity potentially like out there, because it will give you an idea of whether, number one, your dreams or what you're aiming for is realistic, so to speak. But number two, it gives you an idea of competition as well, okay? Because there will be many other people out there who are going to be applying. The other thing you could do in terms of this sort of like bit is check sort of like course places like Udemy and Coursera and LinkedIn courses and all of that kind of stuff. In Coursera is LinkedIn courses. And so this is if you're being a bit more entrepreneurial by nature, seeing what is out there on Google, using things like Google Trends, or maybe even sign out for Google Alerts or job alerts just to see what pops up so you get an idea. You're gathering data, okay? So we've got data, reports, and news. We've got the marketplaces, and there's many marketplaces like Upwork as well, and freelance.com and Fiverr, etc., etc. The final bit is making sure that you talk to different people. So what you want to do is you want to talk to recruitment agents, you want to talk to contractors who are within the space, whether this is permanent, inside or outside of IR35, marketplace contractors, etc., etc. Talk to people to see what they see, to try and understand what they understand. Again, you want to do the whole LinkedIn stuff. So you speaking to people gives flesh to what you've discovered, okay? This is all part of your primary research. And so you'll come to some sort of conclusion to understand precisely what the market is saying. And so that's pretty much it. I don't want to go too deeper. So in the first part of context, it was understanding the personal. The second part, which we're talking about right now, is really talking about, okay, what is happening out there in the market. The third part, I'm going to be talking about how you can put all of this together so you have something coherent and comprehensive to make a solid decision in terms of what direction you want to go in. So if you want to see more videos centered around portfolio careers, contracting, and all the above, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.